Good day, viewers. You are welcome to yet another program of Security Watch today. Here with us today is a man that I've seen it all in respect of security in this country. A highly respected Nigerian that have done everything possible for the security of this nation. Before we meet him, let us watch this short clip and we will come back. Thank you.
January 15, 1966 coup. Who carried out the coup and for what reasons?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to try and enlighten people on this coup that seems to be at the center of subsequent problems in Nigeria. The coup of January 15th, 1966 was actually led by Major Ifajuna, and he commanded the activities in the south, and Zogo, another major, coordinated the northern side of it from Kaduna. The reason for the coup, the teething problems of Nigeria after 1960, the independence, manifested itself in a number of ways. There was a friction over the preponderance of the North. There was certain difficulties about religious beliefs in the country. There was corruption, bad administration, and so on. Law and order broke down in the West after the second election. There was so much rigging. In fact, BBC had this rather wonderful statement. It said that men became pregnant overnight with votes. Because, you know, we wear these huge robes, and you can stuff as many ballot papers inside them. And as a result of that, and because by then Awolowo was in jail for treasonable felony, it was felt that the North used its powers to ensure that Akintola, who became their stooge, won the election. It became very dangerous to travel around the streets of Lagos or the West, anywhere. That's when they started throwing acid at people in the streets, in your car, the phenomenon known as wet year. That is wet in wet year. Throwing acid on people. And it was to halt this, actually, that the military was pulled out of barracks to help stabilize the situation. And this went on. We were not moving anywhere. The countries were becoming independent. We were seeing Julius Nyerere creating personality in Africa, Nkrumah there, and so on. Nigeria is big, and with all the promise of independence, was clearly doing nothing. It was then that a group of young officers. Now let's get it straight. The young officers had within Igbos, Yorubas, and Hausas.
Now we're back. I will let him introduce himself for a better clarification of who he is as far as Nigerian is concerned. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Please, for the purpose of clarity, can you let the viewer know who you are, sir?
Okay, my name is Major KDC Obimonso, retired. Major KDC Obimonso, retired. They call me Major Ken for short. I am also a pastor. I'm a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So some call me Pastor Ken, some call me Major Ken, but I prefer you just call me Pastor Ken. because I was a major 21 years ago, 23 years ago actually, 23 years ago. So I prefer to be referred to as Pastor Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Pastor Ken, as you have asked us to address you, we just watched a short clip of late Colonel Odumegu Ojukwu stating the reasons why the first coup in Nigeria in 1966 occurred. Sir, in the social media and in some dailies, they have been clamoring for a military takeover in Nigeria due to some point Colonel Ojukwu enumerated in 1966, which include insecurity, religion, as well as corruption. But today, everybody is clamoring hardship, economic hardship. Sir, with all these indices, Colonel Ojukwu saw in 1966 that he alluded were the reason for a military takeover then. Do you see anything on ground today that could resort to something like that?
Okay, Colonel Emeka Odumegu Ojukwu, son of Nigeria's first billionaire, Sir Louis Odumegu Ojukwu, Oxford graduate. He said in the interview that certain remote and immediate causes led to the 1966 military coup. That's the first military coup in Nigeria. Right now, during the last protest in Nigeria, this is 2024, August 30th, we saw some people waving flags, flag of a foreign nation, Russia specifically, and they're calling for military takeover openly. They were not hiding it. I want to say that Nigeria has come a long way. Nigeria has been able, by the grace of God, to complete 25 years of unbroken democratic governance. We celebrated it not too long ago. And the Nigerian military, both serving and retired, are no longer looking at coups d'etat. Nigerian military, they have made up their minds to subordinate military authority to civilian rulership, military power to civilian authority. The 1999 Constitution says the military should aid civil authority. That is what is happening in the civilized world. Although we are seeing a gale of military takeovers in our West African sub-region, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, and all of a sudden Gabon followed suit, Nigeria is not seeing itself, or rather the Nigerian military. Nigerian military is not tempted. Nigerian military is not under any pressure, not under any illusion to allow our country to slide back to the years of military regime. So I do not see any coup d'etat in Nigeria. All I can see is that our democratic process remains a learning process. The military will allow the civilian authority, the politicians, to make their mistakes, correct their mistakes, and the military can only support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. They rightly said the worst form of civilian rule is better than military rule. So I totally agree with Major, now Pastor, that any form of military rule in Nigeria is not foreseeable. But this clamor for military rule, because of all these things that Colonel Ojukwu mentioned, and we can see them in Nigeria today, how do you see the government? What advice can you give the government to tackle this imbalance in the society that could make someone to stand up and said, let the military take over?
Well, before I answer that, let me mention that I was privileged to meet Colonel Emeka Ojukwu in person in the year 2004. In February 2004, at his old residence in Enugu, near JAM office, near Top Rank Hotel, he sent for me and I went all the way from Lagos to go and answer his invitation. I also went with somebody as a witness whom I will not mention. So, Dim Ojukwu, as we call him in Igbo land, he has a title DIM, Dim, from Newe, where he comes from. Dim Emeka Ojukwu took me into a closed-door meeting, carrying the wife Bianca's twins on both hands. The twins were young, very, very young then. And he told me some things. It's not everything he told me I can say here, but basically, I want to advise the government that they should not allow the same conditions that led to the 1966 military coup to occur again. It's very commendable that President Tinubu saw fit to mention in his last address after the protest that those calling for with notice of Igbos in Lagos, that the law will catch up with them. The Lagos State Governor also spoke. He spoke out on it. They did not keep quiet. I want to commend Mr. President for not keeping quiet, because it is such things that led to genocide in Rwanda. And so the conditions before the 1966 coup was basically a riotous situation in the country. Like the last video just showed you clearly, there was Operation Wetie in the southwest Nigeria when Paolo was having a political battle with Samuel Ladoke Akintola. It was very chaotic, and the military was touched. The military started getting tempted. So the president should not allow any political supremacy battle between politicians to destabilize the country. That also happened in 1965 in southwest Nigeria. Secondly, the president should discourage ostentatious display of ill-gotten wealth by politicians. In a country where people cannot feed well, where in spite of the recent increase in the minimum wage, it is still unable to buy a bag of rice, it is not the best time for politicians at any level, local government, state, National Assembly, to be displaying ill-gotten wealth. These things lead to a lot of provocations among the masses. That's why you see bandits are so emboldened. They collect ransom openly. They display their ransom on TikTok. They will pack wads of money like a wall, heap it up like a wall, and without masks. They talk without masks, because there is moral values. There is reciprocity in every society. If you know that you do not own factories and you do not own industries like Dangote, why are you coming around displaying ill-gotten wealth in the midst of a very hungry and very desperate population? Even if there is no military coup, we saw NSAS. There could be sudden eruptions within the society because values have been undermined, merit has been sacrificed. And so I will advise the government on 2 or 3 major points. Number one, do not allow the same circumstances, the same political indices that played out before the first military coup, do not allow them to play out again. Secondly, rein in politicians. There is no coup anywhere in West Africa or Africa that did not begin from the political class. Rein in politicians and their excesses. We see them on social media. We see the way they carry themselves. Rein them in. Rein them in. Mr. President, do not allow any politician under your government to engage in a supremacy battle with another politician. I don't want to mention names. I don't want to mention geopolitical zone. Do not allow politicians to destabilize Nigeria while fighting for supremacy among themselves. Do not allow display of ill-gotten wealth. Do not allow anything that will show favoritism of one ethnic group above the other. Do not allow ethnic supremacy battles. Let the federal character reflect in every government platform. Let the federal character that is in the Constitution be displayed in every parastatal, in every ministry, in every agency, in the composition of any organization under the federal government. Unite Nigerians. Let us have one nation. Already we have lived together since 1914, amalgamation. So it is no longer a young country. Nigeria is not so young. Let the tribalism be downplayed. Let the ethnicity be mellowed down. Let the religious supremacy be mellowed down. Let political rascality be stepped down. Let politicians know that they are servants to the people. Let them not be behaving like lords of the manor, as though the people are their slaves.
Thank you very much, sir. As you have rightly alluded, as politicians need to tame their excesses so as to prevent any chaos in the land. This brings me to the question: is the current system of government we are running in Nigeria the right one? If no, please explain, sir.
Okay, thank you for that very important question. Right now, I do not know why Nigeria has found it very difficult to review its system of government. As far back as 1984, when I was still in my SS1 at the Dennis Memorial Grammar School Onitsha, popularly called DMJS Onitsha, we had a very good government teacher that taught us the subject of government. So as far back as 1984, at the age of 14, I think I had mastered 17 forms of government. I may not remember all of them now. I wrote government in my WAEC, but at least I still remember plutocracy, I still remember oligarchy, aristocracy, totalitarianism, theocracy. I still remember that democracy is just one form of government. I still remember feudalism. I still remember monarchy. Countries like Saudi Arabia are not a democracy, and yet they are doing well. I still remember all these forms of government. So Nigeria did not set off with the presidential system of government at independence. We had a prime minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, from Bauchi State, may his soul rest in peace. He was a very fine leader. And Nigeria did not take off with copy kind of presidential system of government. And if we have practiced presidential system of government for so long, with so much interruptions, and it has proven very expensive, it has proven very expensive. Let me just stop there. Why don't we review it? It is not made in heaven. God did not command us to practice presidential system of government. Even as Africans, we had no such thing like that before the white man came. So why don't we try to amend our presidential system, even if we do not go back totally to the parliamentary system, which Britain practices, our colonial masters practice parliamentarism. Why can't we adjust it? What are we doing with two houses in the National Assembly? Senegal collapsed one house. Out of the Senate and the House of Reps, they decided to have one house. That is called unicameral legislature. But why are we insisting on bicameral legislature? Why are we insisting on running a government that is so expensive to run? Is it not time that we review our presidential system? Is it not time that we cut costs? Is it not time that we remove all the avenues for wastage? If we have 360 members of the House of Representatives and we have 109 senators, what this House does, the lower house does, the upper house will replicate. What the lower house does, the upper house will repeat. Isn't it time that we review it? I believe it is time that we make do with one house. It will not collapse anything in Nigeria. That one house will still be fully representative of the people. That one house will still make laws that are effective. I think apart from the National Assembly, there are so many aspects of our presidential system that require review. We have had several constitutional conferences, and yet we are still where we have been. I think we should take a look at our system of government and come up with a homegrown democracy, homegrown type of democracy, homegrown type of government based on our experiences, based on our economic challenges, and just cut our coat according to our cloth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that well-explained answer to the question. But going forward, sir, there have been clamor currently in the society among the leaders from various zones that there should be a review of the Constitution. And from the news that we read, we heard that there have been various review of the Constitution, and the Constitution is still seen as one of the major problems facing Nigeria. Or should there be a total new Constitution? Do you see the Constitution being one of the solutions to the major plenty problem that Nigeria is currently faced?
All right, I could have given an academic answer to this question. Constitutional review is very important in every country. If you go to America, you hear about the First Amendment, Second Amendment. Constitutional review is very important in every country. The Constitution is the ground norm. It is a fundamental law that binds the country. It is from there the Mr. President derives his powers. It's from there the service chiefs derive their powers, the governors, the policeman on the road. Everything about a country is based on its constitution. So I could give you an academic answer, and I will emphasize on the need to review the constitution and all that, but I wouldn't want to waste your time. No president of Nigeria so far has succeeded in reviewing the 1999 Constitution. And the reason is very simple. To review the Constitution is very tedious. It's not something the National Assembly alone can do. You need the 36 houses of assembly in every state. It is a very tedious process. And by the time any president embarks on it, it becomes a very big distraction. It becomes a very big weight on the government. Economic priorities suffer. Political priorities, well, I want to call it political priorities, but socio-political emergencies could be neglected, like the current economic situation in Nigeria, like the current urgent need to reduce poverty, the current urgent need to, enhance national security and kidnapping and banditry and various types of insurgencies. The moment a president of Nigeria dabbles into constitutional review, he discovers that there's an ocean that he may not be able to swim through in its first time in office, which is 4 years. And so what happens is that the president dances around it and then pulls back. So should he continue like that forever? No, it shouldn't. But I think that the timing is very important. Presidents have done 8 years in this country. They are the ones that had the opportunity. If you use your first term to stabilize yourself in office, make your appointments, address the economy, address security, address good governance. These are the three things that I remember former President Barack Obama told the last president, General Muhammadu Buhari, to focus on: security, economy, good governance. Obama said so. Nigeria, please focus on security, economy, and good governance. So the presidents that have done 8 years are the ones that ought to, after their first term, in their second term, perhaps 2 years to the end of their second term, they could use 2 years to dabble into constitutional review. But right now, it's just, I don't know how to put it, it's just blowing hot air if you start telling President Tinubu to dabble into constitutional review right now, because I know he would not. There's no wisdom in it. He has a lot on his hands. If he could only fix food scarcity, if he could only end these kidnappings all over the country, the insurgencies all over. Look at the Southeast Nigeria, for instance. It is so bad there right now. In my home state in Anambra, I see on social media reports of open kidnappings in Awka, state capital for that matter. They enter shops and abduct people in Awka, in Onitsha, everywhere. It's so sad. It's so bad. In the north, bandits abduct people in their hundreds. So no president will leave such emergencies to start dabbling into constitutional review. But let me say this for the records and for purposes of history and for the younger ones. Our constitution says we, the people of Nigeria. There is nowhere that we, the people of Nigeria, gather to make any constitution. I say again, the current 1999 constitution says we, the people of Nigeria, have agreed to make this constitution. And I say again, there is nowhere that we, the people of Nigeria, ever gathered to make any constitution. This constitution was bequeathed to us by the military. It was an emergency constitution done by the military government of General Absalom Abubakar. We thank General Abubakar for not perpetuating himself in office. He could have elongated his stay. He could have done a 5-year transition program. But the general was so much in a hurry to leave power. He's right in Africa. It's only Chief Olusegun Obasanjo that voluntarily handed over to civilian government in 1969, and the whole world clapped for him. General Absalom is another person that hurriedly left power. He didn't want to stay. So this constitution was written by the military. Two gentlemen, Professor Yaduda, I think, yes, Professor Yaduda, and with the assistance of Abambo. These two gentlemen are the ones that were engaged to write this constitution, if I remember correctly. I don't want to tell you things about this constitution that are very annoying. I don't want to go into that. For instance, in a secular nation, Nigeria is a secular nation made up of two major religions, Islam and Christianity. Christianity being the older religion. And these are religions that came from the sons of Abraham, Abrahamic faiths. You have Judaism that came first through Prophet Moses. And then you have Christianity that came after Christ had left the earth. Christ himself being a son of Abraham. And then, of course, you have Islam that came through Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him. These are all sons of Abraham. These three persons came from the same bloodline of Abraham. Now, we Africans, we have imbibed these religions, these faiths. And in our constitution, the word Christian is not mentioned. The word church is not mentioned. I won't go more than that. In our constitution, you can see Grand Qadi, you can see Islam well represented, well reflected in our constitution. But you will not see the word church. You will not see the word Christian. Christianity is totally absent in our constitution because it was written in a hurry. And were there Christians at the table where it was written? Of course they were. Members of the Provisional Ruling Council. That was the military ruling council. They were there. But because the government was in a hurry to leave, the gentlemen just put up this document together and just submitted, and then we were all in a hurry to pursue the military and have democracy. Nobody had any time to start looking into it. So obviously, 1999 Constitution needs to be reviewed. It needs to reflect the secular nature of Nigeria. Nigeria is not a theocracy, it's a democracy, and it has two major religions, not to mention the African traditional religion, they are here. We have African traditional religion adherents. They also ought to be reflected in the Constitution. They are Nigerians. We cannot discriminate against them. So yes, review the Constitution, but when are you going to do that? Every country has its priority. So I will urge Mr. President to look at the 2004 Constitutional Conference, look at the conferences that have been organized. It's from a Constitutional Conference that we got our 6 zones. It was Dr. Les Ekweme, so rest in peace, former Vice President, that came up with the idea of 6 zones for Nigeria. It was Ekweme's idea. He sat down, looked at the Nigerian map, and broke it into 6 parts. And then we have power rotation today, which is a gentleman's agreement. It's not enshrined in the Constitution. These things should be done in the constitutional amendment. There should be power rotation among these 6 zones so that nobody feels marginalized. You can see the Biafra agitation is getting, I don't know, you see soldiers being shot in the east, you see policemen being shot in Enugu. That is not the character of the Igbo man. The Igbo man, they say the Igbo man loves money. When did he start loving power? When did he start loving terrorism? The Igbo man loves his shop. He loves money, yes. So how come he's loving something else now? How come he's loving guns? He's loving terrorism. Terrorism is not in the character of the Igbo man. If we're having these things like this, that means power needs to rotate among the 6 zones so that on no account would any zone be left out? Right? So these are the things that cause upheavals, instability, national security challenges that the military cannot handle. I thank God for the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. He said that the military can only tackle 30% of the problems. The military action can only handle 30%. The rest are good governance issues. So yes, Mr. President, when you get another term, God keep you alive and keep you healthy, please tackle constitutional review. But for right now, I know that's not the priority right now.
Thank you very much, sir. We have been with Major Ken Obi, who is a pastor now. He has opened our eyes to so many intricacies, so many challenges of the country, and he has proffered solutions to many of them. Would you wish and hope that the government of the day listen and take some of the advice? Sir, before we go, you mentioned about Christianity, Muslims in the constitution. I want to talk about religion. Nigeria is a highly religious country, from the Christian, the Muslims, and the non-Christian and Muslims. Sir, what role do you think religion should play? Is there any role religion should play as regards security in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm a member of the Locust Army International. The Locust Army is a church where I worship with my family. This is the emblem of the Locust Army International. That's a church I belong to. I was born an Anglican, from a very staunch Anglican family. My dad being a Roman Catholic, my mom being an Anglican. And then from there, in Nigerian Defense Academy, I gave my life to Christ in my second year, September 18, 1988, at the age of 18. And then thereby I became a Pentecostal. Not abandoning my Anglican roots anyway, but I became a Pentecostal. Now, we have mega Pentecostal churches. I've had the privilege to be mentored by Bishop David Oyedepo for years, right from when I was an officer cadet. We used to sneak out of the NDA to go and listen to him. So what role should mega multi-billionaire Pentecostal churches play in security? I want to mention that there is the Christian Association of Nigeria that binds all Christians in Nigeria, all churches, Orthodox. And then there is the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN, that binds all Pentecostal churches in Nigeria. So these two bodies control every Christian in Nigeria. Whether you like it or not, you are either in PFN or you are in CAN. What is CAN doing about security? What is PFN doing about security? Let me leave CAN, because CAN has a lot of structured programs. I don't want to talk about CAN because I'm not very much deep into CAN activities. But I think I'm aware of Pentecostal activities, since I'm a Pentecostal now. So let me talk about PFN. Our churches are so rich that they can assist Nigeria in national security and national stability. Our churches are so rich. They are so rich. I have one of my spiritual mentors. His name is Apostle Ijinogu. He was once made the chairman, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, National Committee on Security. And he called me one day and he came to me and said, Major Ken, please come and see me in Port Harcourt. I'm the chairman of the PFN Committee on Security. And I want you to give us a paper. I want you to give us a document, a proposal on how PFN can enhance security. Because when the church is secure, Nigeria is secure. If you check the population of the church, and then the church takes steps, not for individual church security as they are doing now, but for group security. If all the churches in Nigeria are secure, then it will enhance security in Nigeria, if there is coordinated security among the churches. So I wrote a document, I wrote a paper, I sat down, I wrote a paper on how PFN can secure all the churches in Nigeria. Not only that, how the churches could improve security in their immediate environments. how the churches could become cities of refuge for all citizens around them. That means there is any emergency, there is any security threat, if the nearest police station is far, or there is no police station at all, the church, the nearest church, should be the point of call for anybody under any kind of security threat. I wrote that paper, I drew the diagrams, and I gave it to him. And he took it to the PFN president that time. I think somebody from Edo State, forgotten his name. He took it to the PFN president, the last two PFN presidents, I think, from Edo State, before the current one emerged, the last two PFN presidents. No, not Orisha Jaffa, he's from Edo. I've forgotten about his name. Modern Day or something like that. I've forgotten his name anyway. So they took it to him, and I was waiting for us to be called up to implement it. If that document is implemented, security will be synchronized among churches within 704 local government areas. Churches will be trained and reorganized to impact security in their environment. Any environment where there is a church will be more secure than when there is no church. So churches could easily become cities of refuge, a place of succor, a place to run to for safety by any Nigerian threatened, no matter his religion, Muslim, Christian, African traditional religion, atheist, as long as you're a Nigerian and you're in Nigeria. If that document is implemented, a church becomes a safe place for any citizen to flee in times of security. Apart from that, churches could assist the police. Churches could contribute money, serious money, and buy vehicles for the police, buy communication equipment. I don't know why tracking system is not working in Nigeria. It amazes me. The last minister, Pantami, right, told us that when we did the NIN, once it is done, Nigeria is more secure. I'm surprised that with NIN, with BVN, with driver's license, the international passport, with all sorts of ID cards, bandits still come out openly, make calls, show videos of their ransoms, and nobody is being tracked. In my own personal experience, I've had occasions where I needed to do some tracking for relations that were in security distress. Tracking in Nigeria is opaque. There is no 911. You can't call 911 so easily, and then tracking. So the church could help. The church could help the government in this area. The church could come up with a platform with government approval, with NSA approval and government approval. The church could set up an emergency number that any Nigerian could call. Yes, the church has the money to do that. Pentecostal churches have the money to buy the equipment, set up a top common emergency coordination center of the church in Nigeria, that if you call, no matter who you are, that center networks with the federal government agencies. That center assists the federal government agencies. That center makes policing easier. That center assists troops, assists the DSS. That center is an assistance center in the national security system for those who are unable to get across to federal intelligence services. The church can do a lot. The church is so rich. If anybody tells you the church is not rich, the person is lying. The church, we see the church. The church is not poor. The church is rich. So it is time for the church, it is time for the mega churches to pull funds together, sit down with government and say, please, how can we be of help? We are Nigerians. How can we be of help? But what we see is mega churches members getting kidnapped, churches paying ransom. I mean, that's funny. That's funny. They are not pulling their strength together. The general overseer of a mega church, whom respect so much, went to Kaduna to go and see the Kaduna State governor when he was on seat, RFI. They paid ransom to get a busload of their church members released. So churches are so individual in orientation. They are so individualistic in outlook. You can't even run into any church right now if you are being chased by armed robbers or being chased by kidnappers. They will not open their gates for you. They will say, yes, what is it? Which church do you go to? It's not the way of Christ. If you go to John chapter 17, you will see the last prayer of Jesus Christ. I say again, if you want to know the last thing Jesus said on this earth before his ascension, go to John chapter 17 and read through. You see where Jesus was praying seriously and saying, Father, that they may be one. You've sent me here on this assignment, and I have finished this assignment, and now I'm coming back to you. Now I have one major request of you, O Father, that these people for whom I have come, shed my blood, for whom you raised me from the dead, for whom that they may be one, even as you and I are one. So why is all these church signboards everywhere? They operate individually. Yes, you have differences of administration, you have different doctrines, you have difference in administration, but it is still Jesus. They all pray in Jesus' name. Nobody prays in the name of his general overseer. Nobody prays in the name of his church signboard. Every Christian prays in that name, Jesus. So why can't that name bind them together to come together and do something that is charitable? What God says in 1 Corinthians 13, that charity is number one. That if you have all the miracles, you have all the mansions, you have all the power to raise the dead, you have all, and you do not have charity, love for your fellow man, love for everybody, you do not have charity, that all your signs and wonders is rubbish, is there in the Bible. So why can't the churches pull resources together and make the churches cities of refuge, that any distressed Nigerian having any security threat can run to any church gate, and there will be a structure built. The structure is there, an emergency structure near the gate where anybody can run to have communication facility, it will have first aid equipment. And why can't churches put resources together and get it done? They have the money. Men like us are available. There are so many security experts in the church. I served the armed forces. I didn't serve too long. I served for only 16 years. I got the rank of major, and then I retired on medical grounds with unblemished record of service, with good conduct. But there are Christians who are major generals, who are former service chiefs, former DG DSS, former DG NIA, former chiefs of army staff, Christians, and they are in churches up till now, former service chiefs. Why can't the church pull resources together and let all the security experts come together and draw a template that can make the church functional in security, that can make the church an asset to national security instead of paying ransom to bandits? I think that will stop there.
Wow, that is explosive. I think we've seen it in most, if not in all churches, everybody doing his own thing. I think a time has come for us to come together and have one voice, especially against insecurity. But sir, I know you are a Christian, and because of that you've talked so much about Christianity as regard insecurity. But as a security expert, whom I believe gathered information from every angle of the country, what about the Muslim religion? What role do you think they can play as regard insecurity in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. As it is with the Christians, so it should be with the Muslims. The Muslims, to me, I don't know how to put it. I think the mosque is even a more binding environment than the churches. I'm not sorry to say that. And let me tell you why the mosque is a more binding environment. When you enter the mosque, have you seen Nigerian Muslim presidents like President Buhari? Have you seen them enter the mosque before? They go on the floor. They go on the floor, and you see them side by side, skin to skin. If you don't see President Tinubu as a Muslim on the floor in the mosque, it can only be for health reasons, maybe, also, or any Muslim president or leader that cannot bend down and get up so easily, and is advised by doctors not to be doing that. The mosque is a leveler. In the church, we have special chairs reserved for big men. Even if he doesn't come to church for 10 years, the church chair will be there. In the mosque, there is nothing like that. In the mosque, there is nothing like that. The mosque is a leveler. And that gives hope to the ordinary Muslim. It's a leveler. Enter any mosque anywhere, you're on the floor. You're on the floor. So since the mosque has that philosophy already, since the mosque has that ideology already, it's even easier for the mosque to assist Nigeria in security. The mosque is more accessible. Have you seen masalachis up and down in every street corner? You don't need gates to enter so many masalachis. They won't even ask you which denomination of Islam do you belong to, whether you're a Sunni, whether you're a Shiite, whether you are, the denomination that is believes in second coming of Jesus Christ. What's his name again? Tijaniya. That's Sanusi Muhammad Sanusi is the leader. So they won't ask you whether you're Ansaru. It's Bismillah, 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 Bismillah. You're welcome, you're welcome. So for the mosque, it's even a lot easier because their class differences has already been mellowed down by the nature of the mosque. So what the mosque can do is to go through the leaders of JNI, Jamaatul Nasr Islam, with the help of the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the leader of all Muslims in Nigeria. It's not rotational. I think it's a permanent title. It's a permanent seat. So with the help of all the Muslim organizations in Nigeria, the mosque can sit down together and say, okay, what do we do? Muslims are getting killed, seriously. We like to complain that, a religious riot, religious killings take place. But let me tell you, let me shock you. Bandits, Muslim bandits are killing Muslims. Seriously. Seriously. A mosque in Kano was bombed by Muslims. So fundamentalism and terrorism do not respect religion. So since the Muslims are equally being killed all over, being abducted all over, I think the mosque, the leaders of the Muslim faith in Nigeria can come together as well, as I'm advising the Christians come together. And let the mosques also be centers of refuge, as I've just mentioned about the church. So where there is no church, there is a mosque. In faraway, remote northern deserts, where you will not find any church, you see a mosque. Where you will not see any police station, you will see a mosque. And so the federal government should come together, call the Muslim leaders together, call the Christian leaders together, and give them some support, give them approval to reorganize the religious system so that every religious worship center functions as an emergency center, emergency security center. It will require provisions of certain logistics. They require provisions of certain technology. They require provisions of certain communication equipment, certain logistics. Technology has to be involved, so that any Nigerian that is threatened, any Nigerian that sees his life at risk at anywhere, can run to the nearest masalachi. And no matter how lowly the masalachi, the communication equipment will be there. The logistics, the device that is in the churches will also be in the mosque. And I think one more thing that can be done by the mosque as well as the churches is that we need to regulate our preaching. There is still a lot of fundamentalist preaching going on in churches and mosques. The president of Rwanda has just come up, Kagame, and closed down so many churches and then put a ceiling, put a condition. There is no way to regulate who is a pastor in Nigeria right now. And I don't know if there's any way to regulate who is an imam. You hear pastors getting arrested for 419. You hear imams getting arrested for ritual killing. Are these people imams? They are not imams. They are not pastors. They are not pastors. You see pastors getting arrested for drug pushing. Pastor. Who gave him pastor title? You see a man was arrested with a human head and who gave him imam? So I think the last government tried to step in, but we are so crazy about religion in Nigeria. The last government tried to step in. There's a law called the Kama Law, which Femi Falana has explained. Nigeria has a law called the Kama Law, CAMA. The last government tried to implement it, but the way we do. The last president is a Muslim, so the Christians rose up. He's trying to meddle into our churches. So please, Nigeria should get its acts together, right? There should be a law, even if there is not law for now, because making laws may take time. There should be presidential fiat, an executive order. There should be some form of, government approval in a summit where the mosques will come together with the churches, where the leaders of the Muslim religion in Nigeria will come together with leaders of Christian religion in Nigeria, and a template should be drawn that religious centers should double as emergency centers. Religious centers should double as cities of refuge. They should also double as first aid centers. There should be centers where any citizen can run to before the first law enforcement agent comes into the scene. It will involve technology. It will involve enhanced protection of churches and mosques. It will involve the use of personnel from the mosque, retired personnel like me, former DSS, former police officers, former military officers. They are all in all the churches. They are all in all the mosques. Nigeria should wake up and use its human resources aright and reorganize religious centers to equally be emergency centers assisting national security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. One more last question before we go. We all know what is going on in the country now. Economic hardship, which I believe is also part of the problems that are fueling insecurity in Nigeria. In your own personal opinion, sir, what advice can you give to the government in tackling or reducing this economic hardship currently ravaging the country? The president has advised us, has pleaded with us that we should be patient, that there are some policies and programs that is currently undertaken that will ameliorate this situation in few weeks, months time. Do you see an end to what is currently going on in Nigeria? And for how long, sir? What is your advice for the government?
Okay, the word of God says, first of all, let intercession be made for all men, for kings, for those who are in authority, that we may dwell peaceably, for this is good and acceptable in the sight of God. The word of God says, first of all, let intercession be made. What is intercession? Prayer for somebody, prayer for a community, prayer for somebody other than yourself. And I want to say that we are praying for President Tinubu, as we prayed for President Buhari, as we prayed for President Jonathan, as we prayed for President Yar'Adua, as we prayed for President Olusegun Obasanjo, as a matter of commandment of the Holy Bible. It's a commandment on all Christians to pray for those in authority. So I want to talk to President Tinubu and say, sir, Your Excellency, we are praying for you because the Bible commands us to pray for you. Doesn't matter the political party, doesn't matter the political divide. And so summon courage, sir. Summon courage. Summon courage, sir. And be careful with IMF. The food scarcity we are suffering in Nigeria right now, the sudden hardship, my military pension cannot buy 2 bags of rice. I'm a major. Be careful with IMF, sir. We are praying for you. Don't always dance to the tune of the Bretton Woods institutions. Monkey no fine, but the mama like him. This is our country. God has blessed you, Mr. President. You are not looking for money anymore. You are educated. You have a beautiful wife, a first lady. You have grown up male children. Not every family has that. You are a self-made man, if I may put it that way. We're also happy that no man can beat his chest as being the one that financed you into Aso Rock. That means you don't have any cardinal godfather breathing down your neck. So, Mr. President, summon courage. We are praying for you. Be careful with IMF. History shows us that we cannot point how many African countries that became El Dorado via IMF policies. Be careful with IMF. It's not everything they advise an African leader that he should swallow. Remember, in international politics, sir, every country watches its own back. Nobody can love Nigeria more than you, more than us Nigerians. The current food emergency we are facing, what is happening to farming in Nigeria? Why are farmers not going to farm anymore? Taraba produces tons of food, Adamawa, Benue. But insecurity is not allowing farmers to go to farm anymore. Initially, we thought it was just insecurity. We thought it was just banditry. We thought it was just terrorism. Then all of a sudden, we started seeing evidence on social media that it is a coordinated global plan. Some people want to bring GMO material, genetically modified food, and flood Africa with it. It's already in our country. Some people want to take hold of the reins of food production in Africa. They don't want us to feed ourselves anymore. They don't want us to be able to go to farm and produce food. Nigeria is arable. So many countries in the world cannot farm. because of snow. So many countries in the world cannot farm because of very harsh economic weather. We are blessed with arable land. Then all of a sudden, we cannot produce our own food anymore. Initially, we thought the bandits were on their own, until we saw a medical doctor come out openly on social media to mention the name of an American billionaire who he accused. He alleged with facts and figures, with evidence, is financing killing of farmers in the north. Is financing such insecurity that people will not be able to farm, so that GMO food can flood Nigeria. Mr. President, this is your tenure. It's your chance to make a name for yourself in the annals of history. It's an opportunity for you, Your Excellency, that when your name is made in future, your face will be on the currency of Nigeria. If you can summon courage now. And I'm asking you to summon courage because we are praying for you. We are praying for you as commanded by the Bible. Do not be afraid of anybody. Do not be afraid of any human being. Do not be afraid of any organization, especially foreign organizations, breathing down your neck to make you to implement policies that are not good for your citizens. They've done it with every African president. They did it with Thabo Mbeki of South Africa. Mbeki had to resign as president and hand over to his VP, a man of wonderful integrity, wonderful in quotes. They pressurized Mbeki so much. Mbeki resigned, handed over to the stooge they wanted to use, and they used him to the high heavens. Mr. President, summon courage. Do not approve any policy. Do not permit the Bretton Woods institutions, especially IMF and the World Economic Forum, and all those that sponsor the unrest. How can terrorists gather fellow Muslims in Borno, line up farmers and kill them? Why farmers? Why farmers in particular? Why is it so impossible to farm right now? For how many years now? And then the next thing, GMO food we feel everywhere. They want to be the ones controlling the seedlings. They want to be the ones controlling the seedlings you take to farm. So that not long from now, you will not see natural seedlings anymore because nobody can farm. Mr. President, summon courage. God will give you every support you need. No weapon formed against you will prosper. In the mighty name of Jesus, President Tinubu, you will succeed. If only you can summon courage. Resist these people. We are a nation of 200 million people. Resist them. If they put you under pressure, speak out. If you will not speak out openly to the media, speak to the National Security Council. We will give you every spiritual support you need to overcome these men. Overcome this. They are human beings. They are human beings, even though they belong to secret organizations. But God will not allow them to flood our country with GMO food that leads to cancer. And so the major food crisis we are facing now is by virtue of globalist organizations pursuing hostile policies in African countries, including Nigeria, making farming impossible, undermining security so that the farmers can no longer farm, so that they can take over. Mr. President, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, I pray that God will give you the courage to outsmart them, the courage to resist them, the courage to beat them in their own game, and your name will be in gold in the history of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
I say amen to that prayer. You have heard it all. Pastor Major Ken Obi has been retired, has been our guest in this show today. Please stay tuned to more interview of highly respected Nigeria on ways and how to provide solutions to our myriad problems. I know we will get out of the wood very soon. Fellow Nigerians, let's be patient with our president, and I know very soon everything will be fine. My name still remains Francis Gregory. Until see you next time, God bless you.